Last week, we built a model of supply, demand, and government actions. But there are many different scenarios where we might be concerned about how well our market is doing at benefiting buyers and sellers. In the next set of videos, maybe your intuition will direct you back to our videos from week 1, where we discussed the benefits from specialization in trade, and where we showed how engaging with each other in very specific economic interactions, we ended up doing better than in autarky when we operated alone. At a very high level, we're interested in a similar notion here in our supply and demand system. When we engage in trade, how good is this trade? And how would we evaluate this goodness? In this first video, we're going to talk about one measure of goodness in a demand system. And in the following videos, we'll introduce a similar idea for the supply curve. In the previous set of videos, we introduced the supply model to capture the relationship for an individual seller between a price and their willingness and ability to sell at that price. Then we added up all the sellers in the market to find the market supply curve. We also built the intuition for demand as the relationship for an individual buyer between a price and their willingness and ability to pay at that price. Then similarly, we added up all the individual buyers' demand curves to find the market demand curve, which gives us a relationship between a price and a quantity demanded. Then for a given price, if we have the demand curve, we can always find the quantity demanded by intersecting the price with the demand curve. This essentially answers the question, how much is the market willing and able to buy at this price? And when we change the price from the law of demand, we know the quantity can change and will move in the opposite direction as price. If price increases, quantity demanded decreases. If price decreases, quantity demanded increases. Not every buyer has the same willingness to pay. What if I pay $5, but I'm actually willing to pay $7? This is nice for me. I would have been willing to pay $2 extra, but instead I don't need to spend those dollars and I can keep them for myself. This is how we can think about the consumer surplus for one individual in this demand model. We look at how much they're paying, and we call that expenditure. And whatever is left over, the difference between what they're paying and what they would be willing to pay, is their consumer surplus. This is for one buyer at one particular quantity. But we may have many buyers, and even many buyers buying many units. So to find consumer surplus in the market, we need to add up every consumer and their consumer surplus for every unit bought. To do this, let's start by finding the consumer surplus for the buyer with the highest willingness to pay. Then let's move out across the entire range of units sold, across quantity demanded. This gives us these geometric objects representing areas, and we can find the value of these areas using some basic geometry. And according to the law of demand, when prices increase, the quantity demanded will decrease. And since consumer surplus and expenditure depend on these changing numbers, both the price and the quantity demanded, these two areas also change in the ways you would expect. And the same is true when we decrease price. So in summary, consumer surplus represents what buyers would have been willing to pay, but didn't need to. And it's representing this in our demand model with geometry. And the way we find consumer surplus uses these three simple rules. Consumer surplus is the area beneath the demand curve, above the price, and inside the quantity demanded.